I can say that this is something that I would have expected if I did something like this when I was at the Pentagon.
Yes.
I would have been walking out the door the next day.
Now, let's look at what is going on in Washington. The Pentagon is in disarray. It is absolutely fair to say, after the firing and the resignation of high-level advisors, the Secretary for Defense, Pete Hegseth, he accused them of turning against him. And yesterday he accused the media of peddling lies after the dismissals and resignations.
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't give back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. And on hoaxes, time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does.
That is Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, in defiant mood. Let's talk to Mick Mulroy. Welcome to the program. Mick, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense during the President Trump's first term. Hello to you.
Good to be with you, John.
Tell me, Mick, you heard the defiance in the voice of the Defense Secretary there. I mean, what's your take on this? Is his position sustainable, do you believe?
So, an important part is he didn't deny the actual accusations that he took very classified information, essentially the plans to take strikes from aircraft carriers into Yemen, and took it from a classified system and put it into an unclassified system on his personal phone with people who not only did not have a need to know, but didn't have security clearances.
Right.
That's the issue, I think, at issue here, not whether he likes the media or not.
Right. And given, as you say, the Defense Secretary has not denied that what seemed to most of us, to all of us surely, enormously sensitive information about the nature of attacks into Yemen against the Houthi fighters, that was leaked. That was leaked to the extent of being put on a phone chat line, including his wife and his lawyer. Does that, for you, make his position untenable then?
So it's certainly something that anybody below him, whether they were civilian or uniformed military, would be removed. In the case of uniformed military, likely charged and maybe even imprisoned based on that activity. It's simply unacceptable. This is one of the most sensitive types of information because it is the actual plans for an attack, which puts those conducting the attack in harm's way and very, very much compromised. These systems signal, yes, it's encrypted, but it's commercial, and likely it's been penetrated by our adversaries. Yes. Certainly, the phone of a Secretary of Defense would be a target. So I don't know if it's been compromised, right. But that's why you can't do this stuff on your own personal devices.
Okay, and so just to persist for a moment with that original question, in your judgment, then, should Secretary Hegseth go?
So I don't put myself in the position of President Trump. He ultimately makes the decision of whether his secretaries, whether it be the Secretary of Defense or others, should keep their job, essentially. I can say that this is something that I would have expected if I did something like this when I was at the Pentagon.
Yes.
I would have been walking out the door the next day, if not, under investigation. So I think it's very clearly something that anybody in the military or the intelligence community would see as completely unacceptable. Yeah. And I think it's going to be part of the DOD Inspector General's investigation. And I would assume the president will review that at the end and determine whether he needs to stay or to go.
Okay, that's not just about sensitive information being shared on a chat line in a chat group. We're also seeing top advisors sacked and resigning. All of the Secretary's top advisors seem to have gone. And it looks, doesn't it, isn't it fair to say, that America's military establishment at the very top looks wholly dysfunctional, Mick?
It does. I can't remember a time when this has happened, that this many people who were just walked out of the building. And remember, these people were brought in by the Secretary of Defense, people that he apparently knew and trusted. It's unclear why they were walked out. I've seen media reports that they don't even know. So this is very confusing and certainly sends a bad message, not only internally that there's a lot of chaos in the building, but externally to our adversaries wondering what is going on and why we are in such disarray. And our allies are going to look at this and be concerned as well. Remember, we all share information. especially what they call the Five Eyes. So the UK, the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. We share very highly sensitive intelligence. And if they see this cavalier attitude with where they would put this information, they're going to be less likely willing to share with the United States. And we would be the same if we saw this kind of activity with our close allies.
All right, your concern comes through very, very clearly indeed. Just a word on Ukraine. A Ukraine team, an American team are discussing the prospects for a ceasefire right here in London tomorrow. Now, we can't know, unless you do. Do you believe that the United States might actually walk away from the Ukraine conflict, even withdraw military support and intelligence from Ukraine again?
That would be an incredibly bad decision on the part of the United States. As your previous guest mentioned, this isn't charity. This is in the U.S.'s national security interest to ensure that Ukraine wins this war, not just survives. If there's any criticism of the last administration, is it was essentially supporting them just so they didn't lose. If we walked away, that would be a complete abdication of the U.S. role as the leader of the free world, and I think the rest of the free world would view it that way.
Is it fair?
So hopefully,
yeah. Go on, please.
Yeah, sorry, John.
So forgive me. You were saying.
I was going to say, hopefully the United States starts putting pressure on Russia. Ukraine accepted the ceasefire that the United States proposal put to them. Russia didn't. Right. So it's time to put pressure on Russia, which means increasing support to Ukraine, secondary sanctions against those who purchase Russian energy. That's what's going to get Russians' attention, not compliments, from the special envoy about President Putin. That will just give them more desire to continue the war that they started.
What would you say then to those who believe that America has, to put it very, very bluntly, switched sides, given that the defense of Ukraine is the defense of Western security and its defiance of illegal aggression? Is that a reasonable thing to say?
I think it's a reasonable concern. Ultimately, it depends on what the United States does. This could be some kind of rhetoric. I don't quite understand it or why they think it would work, but some kind of rhetoric to get both sides to come to some kind of ceasefire. But if the United States actually pulls intelligence support, security assistance, then it will show that there is a somewhat, as you say, John, switching sides, which makes no sense whatsoever. If Russia believes that they can do this in Ukraine, they can move on to the next country and potentially even a NATO country, which the United States is still a treaty member of NATO and requires us to fight for a NATO country that if they're attacked. So it makes no sense on in any sphere that I can understand, but ultimately it's going to be the actions that say what the United States is going to do, not just the rhetoric.
Okay, Mick, grateful to you for sharing your thinking this afternoon. That's Mick Mulroy, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense during President Trump's first term.